Just waiting for her to tell me that we...
On the dotted line, is it?
Oh, yes. And yesterday I was listening to it on the radio. I was listening to it before.
Is my... I suppose I should get that a bit closer. That's as close as it'll go. All right.
Can I get back a little bit?
Yep. We're just waiting for the live feed. We're ready to go? Cool. Okay, welcome everybody to this extraordinary meeting of the Otago Regional Council on the 8th of July. We have one item of business. Are there any apologies? There being none. Attendance staff, I assume, are recognised by their own cognizance. Welcome. Confirmation of the agenda, it is confirmed. There are no additional items. Any conflicts of interest that anybody would like to declare, although the Auditor General does seem to have declared by himself? There being none. No public forum today. We'll move immediately to item 6, which is matters for council decision, because to consider the removal of the chairperson. I have before me a motion from Councillor Calvert, seconded by Councillor Kelleher, that reads that the Honourable Marion Hobbs be removed from the office of Chairperson of the Otago Regional Council. That is the motion on the floor. I intend to employ standing orders today, so that's 5-minute speeches, and I will be quite strict on that. However, I will make, with the acceptance of my colleagues, an exception to that. An opening statement from Councillor Hobbs.
9 minutes.
9 minutes? No, 5. But you can have a closing statement as well. So we are making those exceptions to the rules. So an opening statement and a closing statement. Otherwise, we will stay to standing orders. All right. Now, Councillor Calvert, you have moved the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, briefly. The people of Otago chose the current Otago Regional Councillors. We have all promised to use our best skills and judgment in the interests of the Otago region. It is for us to choose one of our members to be chair of the Otago Regional Council, a role which values a leader among equals. I would prefer to have Councillor Andrew Noon as our chair. I understand he is now prepared to put his name forward.
Councillor Kelleher, do you wish to speak now, or do you wish to reserve that right for later?
No, I'm happy to speak now, thank you. I'm disappointed to be seconding the motion to remove the chair today. This has nothing to do with water or any other issue that I deals with.
Excuse me, Kelleher. Excuse me. I would ask members of the gallery, you are not participants in this meeting. If you continue to behave or if you continue to interrupt, then I'll have to ask you to leave. Behave. Do you understand? Good. Councillor Kelleher.
As I was saying, this has nothing to do with water or any other issue the ORC deals with. It's governance. And I don't think there would be a council, a board of directors or a community group of governors in New Zealand that would accept the actions of the current chair. I've lost confidence in the chair, and I think that we do need a change. My preferred contender in October is now available, and I am hopeful he will be able to get council back on track, working with his colleagues at this table for all of Otago. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Hobbs, you are entitled to an opening statement.
I'm sorry, people, I'll have to change this as I write since I've been denied 9 minutes. Mr. Chairman, since not one of the 9 councillors who signed a letter requesting a vote to remove me from the role as chair has given me reasons for their actions, I've had to presume why they want rid of me, and I've come up with 4 possibilities. I may not be able to go through them all. That I am too aligned to central government and therefore disloyal to Otago. That I explored the possibility of the council being replaced by a commissioner if we reneged on our unanimous written promises to the minister about freshwater management in Otago. That I am too close to ORC staff, and that I'm not fit for the job. Old age, a fact. Dementia, a rumour emanating out of Oamaru. Or the fact that I've been a school principal, although that has turned into a revealing epithet, school ma'am or school mistress. So in my defence, I wish to begin with the too aligned to central government. Had our elections for a chair been more measured than the speedy horse trading which occurred, we might have explored our respective values and understandings. You would have learnt that while I value Otago's environment, I did not see it sitting outside the planning hierarchy introduced with the RMA, Resource Management Act, in 1991 and with the establishment of regional councils in 1989. I accept the law which requires each regional council to apply the national policy standards, the national policy statements, the national environment standards and national planning standards to their regional plans. So when on reading the report by Peter Skelton and listening to him address us in November, I readily took on board his advice and timetable, as did all of those councillors present in the letter we sent to the Minister. I accept that there has been work on water in earlier years, Gretchen, but while pockets such as Taieri were successful, there were major gaps in the planning. Last triennium, there was a beginning to close those gaps, supported by Gretchen and Brian in particular, but they were not always able to get the work across the line. To be clear, I do not hold every past councillor guilty of negligence. But Peter Skelton laid out very clearly that we had much work to do in a short time to meet our commitments to the region. Peter Skelton was reporting to the Minister essentially because when regional councils failed to implement national plans, as did Otago, the Minister wants to know why and what can be done. That is why he asked Peter Skelton for the report. I am a centralist because that is our resource management law in New Zealand. There is no allowance to ignore the law without consequences. Had that been understood, you would never have engaged in the unfortunate horse trading, and either would I. I now suspect that the opposition to Gretchen was probably based on her stance on water reforms in past councils, although the opposition was never explained. I am sorry, Gretchen, you could have made a much more stronger chair than me. The second issue was my exploration of the possibility of the council being replaced by a commissioner. This is a convention often used in New Zealand by central government when local government, particularly in health or environment, becomes dysfunctional and/or ignores central government directions. Remember the Otago District Health Board, Environment Canterbury, and I think a health authority in Auckland. It is a device used by both major parties. I understand that the Minister for the Environment raised this possibility when he spoke to the previous council, you were present at that, Michael, in 2019. I didn't know that when I raised the issue in my email. I just knew it was a tool that could be used. Some councillors have argued that their displeasure with me is not about water. We just heard that. They do not explain what it's about, just that it's not about water. I can draw no other inference from this calendar of events and votes. 11th December, we all agreed, those present, were to write to the Minister outlining our plans to rewrite the water plans, the regional policy statement and the timeline. 22nd of January, we received a paper giving us 3 options on a plan to deal with deemed permits. We settled on Plan A as the best option. 2 councillors didn't vote. 5 voted for option A to be developed and 5 against. I cast the casting vote to get option A developed. It was not the pivotal vote, which occurred later. Please note, Mr. Chairman. 26th of February, we wrote to the Minister asking him to call in the water plans 1, 7 and 8 when they were ready. 11th of March, Plan 7 was adopted. Can I just finish this paragraph?
Gotcha, I'm just about to help you. Does anybody wish to grant an extension of time for Marion Hobbs to find? Is there any objection? There being none? 1. The motion is noted. The motion is carried. Marion, if you carry.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you, councillors. 11th of March, Plan 7, and this was the pivotal vote. It was adopted, 6 votes to 4. There were 2 conflicted who didn't vote. And then it was approved for notification, 7 votes to 3. 2 weeks later, only 2 weeks later after that, the letter signed by 7 was published. 2 weeks after we'd passed the deemed permits for notification. The letter and it was asking for Plan 7 to be withdrawn and Plans 1 and 8 reviewed, amongst other things. The 8th of April, the Minister called in all 3 plans, making half that letter of no import. The councillors who signed the 27th of March letter calling a halt to water reforms are the same members who called for my removal. The inference is clear to me. I was too effective in pushing the water reforms. The third issue is my closeness to ORC council staff. The relationship between politicians and civil servants is so different between central and local governments. I was puzzled at the beginning by councillors stating things, "We are in charge, they must obey us." It was really foreign to me. My experience as a minister taught me that I was only as good as the advice I received and challenged. But it was how we challenged and argued. It was done with respect. I never heard a minister yell at a civil servant, "You are wrong." Such behaviour is not conducive to confident, open exchange of views. My closeness is just an extension of past practice. When I need to understand the issues, I ask, I listen, and ask again. To work otherwise is to intimidate advisors into silence. The ORC is so fortunate with the calibre of its staff, led so ably by Sarah. Now to my decision to force a vote, which some of you I know found really hard. I needed to answer to those who voted for me here in Dunedin. To have stepped down gracefully amidst rumours of old age, which is a fact, not rumour, stress, and now dementia, would have shrouded the 4 to 5 months of struggle against those trying to soften, delay, reject the progress towards improved water allocation and subsequent water quality in Otago. That is why, when told of the numbers who would vote against me, I decided, after reflection, Michael, to make this struggle public by forcing a vote. It's been a long 21 days. I'm very grateful for the hugs, the amazing emails, the phone calls, the flowers, the lovely support here today, the conversations with Alexa and Brian, and my wonderful children who have been daily checking out on my strength. I'm glad to state that through all this, the work of the staff does not appear to have been slowed down. We passed the annual plan. The Environment Court this week has notified plans 1, 7 and 8. We are well on the way to writing up the regional policy statement following some excellently balanced citizen panels. To you, councillors, please advise me and the voters why you will vote against me. The voters deserve this. And if you truly want to show that you are now on track to meet your promises to the Minister, then commit today to notifying the regional policy statement before the end of this year. And to you, Mr. Chairman, Michael, if this is to be our third New Start, please could you withdraw your defamation case against local environmentalists and lead the charge to rebuilding a unified rural community in Central Otago. Thank you for the extra time.
Councillor Deaker, please.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I support the motion, but I want to thank Councillor Hobbs too for what she's just said. Much of it was I found myself agreeing with, particularly the bit about the relationship between public servants and elected representatives. That rings very true to me. Having said all that, and keeping in mind that I'm several years older than the previous speaker, so dementia may be even more a factor here. What we have to do this morning, one way or another, depending on how this vote goes, is achieve knowledgeable, unifying, calm, cohesive leadership of this council. That's urgent. And we've got to meet all our commitments to regional policy statement, new land and water plans. Time is short. I agree with Councillor Hobbs about that. And I want to gratefully acknowledge the time and the strenuous effort that the previous speaker has given to chairing this council in the last 8 months. I want to agree with her that this organisation, every part of it, except the governance, is working well, working effectively, better led. The staff, in my observation, having been here 19 years, is better than ever. And they do have high-performing leadership. They're achieving the planning challenges, and that's very little thanks to the 12 of us. I believe we as a council can get back together and improve our contribution with leadership which has sound understanding of local government and of Otago's places and people, understands our standing orders and chairs our meetings accordingly by the book. Leadership which sees farmers as potential partners in the policies and plans we must have and not as an existential threat who want to filibuster and bully. Leadership that says we and not I when referring to the Otago Regional Council. Leadership that does not claim that he or she alone can solve the water issues of Otago. There's something else that would help too, Mr. Chairman. The letter of late March, already referred to by the previous speaker, signed by 7 of us, may well have been written out of compassion for newly locked down rural folks. I get that. It would now be healing and compassionate if any of those 7 who are of a mind withdrew their support for that letter. It still hurts me personally. It still hurts this council as a body. I acknowledge the challenge that Councillor Hobbs agreed to take on when she was elected chair. I'm sure she didn't see it coming. She has put in the time and the effort, but that has not been enough as it turned out. I support the motion.
Who else wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Forbes.
We are losing a capable and connected chair in Marion Hobbs and someone who's built an amazing executive team. We also risk losing an opportunity to fast-track environmental policy through that capability and that connectedness. I have no doubt that this move is about slowing down a process that will eventually put an end to managing a public resource for private gain, that will at a degradation of that resource at public cost. That's what's at heart here. Despite all protestations of economic need, economy only exists within, not without, the environment. There is no balance to be had. Our route to understanding and living in a positive relationship with that fundamental law has just been slowed. To frame this as a personality or governance issue is rubbish in my view. This issue is far more about the coming end of those historic rights to water in Otago. In the wider relational system of our lives on this land, it's also about social injustice, racism, and exclusion. Marion refused to go quietly or with dignity, quotes, as someone suggested she should. As an aside, has anyone ever said that to a male? This was a choice Marion made, not selfish as has been suggested, but entirely selfless, as she worked through 3 painful weeks as an unwanted chair in an untenable position, using that time to make sure the widest audience possible could see what was happening at this council and make their views known and heard. This happened. That's a success of her chair. We have seen ordinary people coming forward with views that support the environmental work Marion has pushed along, and people who have concerns about the degradation of their environment telling their stories of exclusion from the process, and in that I include iwi. We as councillors need to find a way forward now that is about environmental regeneration, and to find ways for that regeneration to support our lifestyles, not the other way around. I was so disappointed to read in the Rural News about new plans to irrigate the Strath Tyrie. Clearly, we have a long way to go. Marion, thank you for your commitment to this work. You may continue it, and may your voice remain strong from your seat as an ordinary councillor. Thank you.
Councillor Scott and then Councillor. Okay. I'm against microphone. I am against the proposed motion. As I've previously highlighted, we're in challenging times, environmental, economic, the virus, and in this situation being the council chair is a particularly challenging role. No chair will be perfect, and we shouldn't expect them to be. I'd like to thank Councillor Hobbs for her various achievements in the past 8 months as chair of this council. 1, working constructively with staff, and I echo what Councillor Deaker said. Staff are doing magnificently. Thank goodness. 2, endeavouring to work with council's many stakeholders, not just federated farmers. There's a long list of stakeholders. 3, embracing our treaty obligations with our iwi partners. I'm really proud of that. 4, working closely with central government, as this council asked her to. 5, pursuing legal conflicts of interest advice for all councillors and staff, which was fought by some. Being transparent. Our chair called a spade, and frankly, some people didn't like it. Most importantly, yes, we've achieved some positive policy progress with our deemed permits and water quality, and we've handed various aspects over to the Minister, and there is still a huge amount to do, as we're all aware. And finally, she passionately pursued a healthy environment and communities on behalf of this council and you, our community. So personally, a big thank you to Marion for your very significant contribution. Thank you.
Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. And I too really do want to thank Councillor Hobbs for the work that she has put into this council in a short space of time. We have put a new focus on the very important work that we are doing in the environmental space, in community space, in the iwi partnership space. That's important and needs to be recognised, so thank you. It's a really challenging time. It's going to be a really challenging time, I think, for regional councils right across New Zealand. We're now starting to confront issues as a country that are difficult and challenging.
Absolutely.
And I welcome you around the table and the value that you add. I think local government is a very special place, and I believe in it strongly. It's truly about democracy. So we're selected by our communities, and we're a very diverse bunch of individuals. We're very lucky. We've got very skilled individuals around this table. But at the moment, we're a bunch of individuals. We're not working as a team, and we're separating into camps, and we're not able to see each other's views because we've become so divided. And I strongly believe that our strength will be in uniting, being able to understand each other's views better, and lasting change will only happen if people can see that they are better off for making the change and want to do it themselves for the long term. If we force people into making changes, they will rebel against it. So I strongly believe in working with our communities, our diverse communities, and I feel that we do need some change. I thank you for your comments about leadership earlier on. I do support Councillor Noon at this point. I think he will be brilliant in uniting our team, but I do feel sad about where we've got to. I feel that Councillor Hobbs and I actually share quite a lot of similar ethos, and like I said in the media, I'm really looking forward to working with you around the table. And I did want to note that this council is one of the most diverse I've seen. What a strength. Really skilled people. We've got 50% women, 50% men. We need to ensure that that diversity is still brought forward. So I feel that we're going to need to make further changes as a council to ensure that the diversity that was presented with Councillor Hobbs is still maintained. And in key leadership roles, I think Councillor Hobbs has still got a very strong role, and others need to come forward as well to maintain that diversity. So thank you very much for the chance to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Robertson. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Well, there being none, I'd just like to say something. And I'd like to publicly reject the contention that this council or any councillor wish to ignore national standards or any of the legislation that governs this council. There are those of us who just saw and proposed a better way to implement policy, in our view, one that would work, one that would be less divisive, one that would make every group in our community a potential partner in improving the environment. And that included those in the agrarian and agricultural communities. And I'd also like to say the aspect of collegiality is critical. I want to endorse everything that Councillor Robertson has just said. We are 12 people with different and disparate skills, experiences and attributes. And all of those must be employed if we intend to do a very difficult piece of work over the next 2 years. The next 2 years' work will govern the next 2 decades. So what we do around here is critical, and every individual's skills are required. And on that issue of collegiality, can I just say to you, Marianne, I don't believe this council's walked away from you. I believe you walked away from this council. And there is the issue for many of us around this table. In fact, I note that on Thursday, the 28th of May, to a councillor-only session, you made the following statements. You said that I have lost all faith after that 7-5 letter, and I have asked the Minister to take things over. That's what you said.
No, and isn't that confidential, Councillor
No, it was written down.
Standing orders, please.
No, I'm sorry. Councillor Hobbs asked for reasons, and I'm giving them.
I don't think
Secondly, you said I have more respect for staff than elected officers. This trust thing is only going to go so far. It will take a while for me. Well, at the end of the day, it's important to be able to trust all your colleagues and to work with them. And if you are going to walk away from your colleagues, they are going to find it difficult to work with you.
You've just blown that.
The job of chairperson is to work with us all. And I believe that there are other persons around this table who can make that collegiality a fact of life. Now, Councillor Hobbs, are there no other speakers that I'm aware of?
I'd just like to make...
Yes, you can. And this is your closing statement.
It'll be very quick. There is a question that was talked about COVID-19, and Councillor Malcolm made much of that in our last meeting, in which he said, you know, that letter was written in the context of COVID-19. I just want to put on the record, you may have had children in France. I have both my children and all my grandchildren in America. Not a great place to be. I was caring for three elderly relatives without being able to see them, yet I still continued my job. And a council led by Sarah, their staff continued through COVID-19. I don't think it can be seen as an excuse. Secondly, we are diverse, but more than that, I think you've just seen an example of, we are very divided. Okay? I won't back away. I will work honestly with whomever is appointed as chair, but I won't back away from arguing for the environment. Okay? And arguing against people who think that they own the water, that they own the air, that they own the soil, and that nothing they do on their land has anything to do with anyone else. I come, even if I am 72, from a very different generation in terms of Resource Management Act, and I think I'm lining up with the new director of Fresh Water in New Zealand, Peter Skelton, and I'm so pleased to see him appointed. Some people won't be so happy in this area. That's all I want to say.
Summarise, you have the last opportunity to speak on this matter before we go to vote.
No, I have nothing to add, thank you.
All right. Now, this is what I propose to do.
Ask for a division.
Cool, I was just about to say that, Councillor Scott. We'll go through a division in alphabetical order, whether or not you are for or against the motion. So it's a simple yes or no. Could you read the motion to us again, please, Liz?
Yes, I can. That the council removes the Honourable Marion Hobbs from the office of chairperson of the Otago Regional Council. Moved by Councillor Calvert, seconded by Councillor Kelleher.
Right, I'll go in alphabetical order. Councillor Calvert.
Yes.
Councillor Deaker.
For.
Councillor Forbes.
Against.
Councillor Hobbs.
Abstain.
Councillor Hope.
Yes.
Councillor Kelleher.
Yes.
Councillor Laws, yes. Councillor Malcolm.
Yes.
Councillor Noon.
Yes.
Councillor Robertson.
Yes.
Councillor Scott.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes.
The motion is passed by 9 votes to 2 with 1 abstention. we now have to go to the
Shame
next
on you,
issue.
Michael Lloyd.
All right, excuse
Shame
me.
on you.
Right.
Shame on all of you. Your children are going to see this.
Point of order. Point of order.
Poor children.
They don't know what's coming for them.
Mr. Chair, we're actually trying to conduct a meeting here, so under standing orders, could you ensure that those outbreaks
This is
cease?
your last warning. If there is any more interruption, I will clear the gallery. Mr. Brazil, could you please leave us now? Could you please leave us now? I'm asking you to leave, Mr. Brazil.
Get on with your job. Guys, your children are going to see this.
See?
Māori are sick and tired of this shit too. You guys are building banks instead of bridges. Aren't we supposed to be getting together? Honour the treaty. Yeah. Shame on you.
Sir, you've made your point now. If you could leave the room, please.
It's white privilege that's happening.
This is a tragedy.
Are you going to speak any more? Because if you are, you really do need to go through that door. Good.
I will leave this room as I declare that Michael Riddell is my father, the one that you charged with character defamation. You have no fucking character. He's dying. He's just lost his daughter, and you think it's acceptable to charge him with character
please,
defamation.
go away. Off you
Shame
go.
on you. I
Off you
hope
go.
bad things happen to you.
Off you go.
Yeah. Watch out in Cromwell, mate. Withdraw the defamation, Michael.
I am no fringe lefty. I
Excuse
am
me.
someone who loves, who looks after babies all week long.
Adjournment.
And the idea of nitrates in the water and blue babies is horrific to me. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. God.
Michael.
You talk of trust, you talk of faith, you talk of working with building bridges. This
We
is
have an
bullshit.
adjournment.
Have an adjournment.
I'm sorry, I'm going to adjourn the meeting until we have some order. If I might take that option. Seconded. Thank you. Move.
Go back to your site.
Withdraw the
Sorry, no, this isn't good. No, I was just going to send a message to our.
For people who in public.
Always hard finding them. Here, the message button. Where do you get into the phone? On the bottom. Right. There's no button. No.
You can't see what's happening here on that. Should it be there?
Well, I'm trying to switch it. Then we can't see the people.
Yeah. Actually, you need two cameras. I need to switch between the two of them. Yeah. I think they agree. Stephen was on a split level. I haven't talked to her. I talked to her and there's nothing. She's fully accepted that All righty, we will reconvene this meeting. Now that we've dealt with the first item of business, a consequent one arises, and that is the need to elect a new Otago Regional Council chairperson. Are there any nominations? Councillor Deaker.
Mr Chairman, I'm pleased to nominate Councillor Andrew Noon for the position of Chair of the Otago Regional Council. Councillor Noon understands Otago and he understands local government and its empowering legislation better than most.
Sorry, Councillor Deaker, all I need is a nomination just at the moment because I've got to then go
I was speaking to the nomination.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you on that, sir.
All right.
I just need a nomination at the moment. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Malcolm, I'll come back to both of you.
Because we have to choose.
We've got, sorry, Michael, we've
system.
got one item of business we must transact, and that is we've actually got to determine what voting system we're going to use. I know it's prosaic and pedantic, but that's just the way it's going to be. I'm sorry.
No,
Standing
thank you,
orders.
Mr Chairman. I like by the book.
Thank you very much. So we have a nomination. I'll come back to more nominations in a second, although I'm not aware of any.
I want to explore one. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's go to the
I'll move System A.
System A.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Right, we have one nomination, Councillor Deaker and Councillor Malcolm of Councillor Andrew Noon. Do I have any further nominations for the role of Chair?
I haven't done any pre-preparation for this, so I'm asking you across the table, Gretchen, would you be willing to stand?
Today I'm not going to stand. I don't think that I have the support and I'm looking to unite the council, but I do really appreciate you thinking of.
You don't want to test that support? Or do you know?
No. Thank you.
All right.
Right. Now, Councillor Deaker.
Yeah, I won't repeat what I said because I'm sure it's still ringing in people's minds.
Well, you can't remember.
But Councillor Noon is well prepared after 6 terms as a rurally based city councillor and about 4 years here at ORC. He's a qualified and experienced resource consent commissioner and, in my observation, a low-key but expert chairman. Above all, given the circumstances we find ourselves in, Councillor Noon is calm, knowledgeable and would have a unifying effect, I believe, amongst all of us. And I'm very pleased that, unlike in previous months, he has now agreed to have his name put in front of us for the role of chair, and I move accordingly. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Deaker. Councillor Malcolm.
I concur with Councillor Deaker. Certainly Councillor Noon has my full support. He understands the RMA, understands the process we're about to go through. He certainly has the ability to unite the council, and most importantly, I believe he has the ability to unite the fall of Otago. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Noon, are you prepared to accept the nomination?
Absolutely.
Do you wish to say anything before we go to formal assent?
We ask them questions.
You can, Councillor Hobbs.
Councillor Noon, would you commit to getting the resource policy statement through on the timeline by the end of this year?
Absolutely. The commitment that we've already made to the Minister will be reconfirmed when I make comment in a moment.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I mean, my question's basically the same question or a similar question. Nevertheless, I'll ask it. Councillor Noon, you're from a farming background and a farming community. You're one of the 7 councillors who previously endeavoured to hold up critical water policy. If elected chair, what assurance can you give me and the community that you'll proactively...
Is that a point of order, Councillor Malcolm?
It is a point of order.
Excuse me, Councillor Scott. Councillor Malcolm.
There has been an accusation made in this chamber that, as a signatory to the letter of 7, that my intention was to hold up water and environmental improvement in Otago. I would question where is the basis that we...
I will rule on this point of order. Thank you. Councillor Scott, if you refrain yourself to answering questions rather than making political points. So refrain yourself to asking questions, please.
I wasn't making a political point. I was just stating a fact in terms of what was written in the letter.
Now you're arguing with the chair, Councillor Scott.
What's wrong with that?
I'm asking you to restrain yourself to asking a question without seeking to embellish it with a political view. If you could ask the question, please.
I was providing a context.
I'm asking you to ask the question, please, Councillor Scott.
So my question is, quite simply, what assurance, and this is a serious question, similar to Marion Hobbs, what assurance can you give me and the community that you'll proactively pursue the requirements of the new policy statement for freshwater management and the new national environmental standards for fresh water?
Like I said in reply to Councillor Hobbs, I'm going to make mention to that in a moment, but I'm fully committed to meet the Minister's recommendations and timelines that have been set and agreed by this regional council. That's probably all I need to say at this point, but can I just pick up on your comment about the letter that was signed? I think it's important. The letter that was signed by 7 councillors, there were a number of points raised in that letter. It wasn't just about the RPS or Plan Change 8, for example. It was also, which was really, really important, there was points made about the importance of having some flexibility with regards to the annual plan. And so I just want to make that point, that that letter covered a number of other topics rather than just planning matters.
With respect, I wasn't referring to those points.
This isn't a political point, Councillor Scott. I wish to employ standing orders pretty clearly on this, and that is you have the right to ask questions. That's it. Councillor Forbes.
I've recently been hearing of issues in the Manahira Care reference group, iwi pulling out, Central Otago Environmental Society not feeling heard. Now, given these issues and given you're the councillor in charge of that group or a representative in that group, and there's many more of these groups to follow, this is the first one off the blocks, do you have a plan to really, truly include the voices of iwi, the voices of the people that live there, the voices of environmentalists and the voices of people who just want their kids to be able to swim in that river?
Through the chair, look, I think it's really important that the Manahira Care reference group, which could well be a model for other FMUs to follow in terms of consultation, etc. It's in you've made a couple of comments, and I need to respond to them. You know, iwi have matters that they've raised with us in terms of the way the MRG works for them, and they have mentioned that the mana to mana is more appropriate in terms of the high level strategic discussions that they have with this council. At the table at the MRG, Akaha obviously provide cultural assessment information that comes through via the technical group. So I just think the model doesn't suit iwi. Iwi have withdrawn from the table because they feel they have other avenues that are more effective for the way they want to communicate with this council. With regard to Central Otago Environmental Society, I attended MRG on Monday. Ray Wright attended on behalf of that group. There weren't any other members. Normally there are around about 3. They make a full and frank contribution to that group, and I believe that the group is working well. And like I say, this is, excuse the pun, we're sort of treading a little bit of new water here in terms of having this type of group to guide us in terms of our policy development. But I believe it is working well. Well, that's my experience anyway.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Right. Well, it's very simple then. Councillor Noon, there being no other nominations for the role, I hereby appoint you, you are hereby appointed.
Shall we vote?
I still need to vote, do we?
Yeah, I would have thought so.
All right, then we'll have a division.
Yes.
2 people have put.
Okay. Who's the second nominee? But it doesn't matter. Councillor Kilbert.
Yes.
Councillor Deaker.
Yes.
Councillor Forbes.
Abstain.
Councillor Hobbs.
And I abstain too. I'm sorry, love. Got some problems.
Councillor Hope.
Yes.
Councillor Kelleher.
Yes.
Councillor Laws. Yes. Councillor Malcolm.
Yes.
Councillor Noon.
Yes.
Councillor Robertson.
Yes.
Councillor Scott.
Yes.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes.
Now I'm counting 10-2 with 2 abstentions. You are elected. Congratulations. Could please come forward and take the oath.
I, Andrew Barry Noon, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Otago region the powers, authorities and duties invested in or imposed upon me as chairperson of the Otago Regional Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
You should have. Yeah, they should stay in the chair now.
Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to chair this Otago Regional Council, and I feel very privileged to sit at the head of the table. He waka kanoa, which is essentially a canoe we're all in without exception. So a waka kanoa, a canoe we're all in without exception. We will be a team of 12 as the governance arm of the ORC, tapping into the wealth of knowledge, talent and experience that you all bring to the table. We form part of Team ORC and part of Team Otago alongside of our community, iwi and stakeholders. Let's just remind ourselves about our strategic purpose, our mission statement, a commitment we've all made for our future, working together for a sustainable Otago. So what do we want for our region, for our Otago? We want a healthy environment, a connected, accessible community, a strong economy, an engaged and proud community, and a resilient region. So what are our strategic priorities? Dealing with water quality and water quantity issues, climate change demands, urban development pressures, biosecurity and biodiversity current and emerging challenges. Addressing a legacy of underinvestment, learning and developing a new culture, and increasing capability and capacity are all extremely important, and this Regional Council is confronting those issues. And yes, we will deliver on Minister Parker's recommendation. There is no doubt. We have lofty goals, standards and aspirations, and so we should. These lofty goals are embedded in our thinking. As this pathway or voyage continues to unfold, there will be times that there will be robust debate resulting in differing views around this table. That's healthy and vitally important. The outcomes as a result of robust debate create stronger decisions. And as they say, strength lies in differences, not in similarities. Community engagement with our iwi partners, our stakeholders and the wider regional community needs to be meaningful, open and effective, building trust and responding to challenging needs, responding to changing needs, helping to strengthen our reputation and relationship with these parties. Finally, through Sarah, to all staff, you have the knowledge, talent and professionalism to help guide this Regional Council. We value and respect your ongoing contribution. So thank you all. I understand that completes this council meeting, and I also understand there is a session, council-only session starting at after coffee. So thank you all for your attendance, thank you for your interest, and we look forward to moving on. Thank you.